Hey there, and welcome back to We Don't Do Boring with me, Andy Hancock. This is Andy's podcast. And as usual, we're talking about our 6 fundamentals, which are time, money, balance, compromise, experience, and most of all, communication. That's why I do this. I do this to help people, but I do it to help myself too. Yes, help me become a better communicator, and that's what I'm aspiring to, because I've been guilty of not being a good communicator. So that's why I do this. So what's today's show about? Well, this is my spot on the little blue and green dot, but my show today is about celebrating small victories. Moving on from proving yourself last week, celebrating the small victories, and because success is a series of small victories. Always, all success, it doesn't matter where you are, all success is a series of small victories, excuse me. And the guy who rides the big kahuna wave, right, his first victory was getting on the board, 25 years ago. My first victory, was learning how to ride a bicycle. And, so it's and doing lots and lots of little things in your life, they all add up. But when there's a series of things that don't add up, that can bring you down a bit. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Celebrating small victories was recently highlighted to me by a friend of mine. And he's been a friend of mine for a few years now. He actually built my container home. And he's just a fantastic guy. And we've been talking about things for a while, and certain things have been bugging him, and we talk mano el mano. Yeah. Okay, men talking about things. But it soon occurred to me that there were various problems in his life, and I've thought, well, why don't you just say something? And I kept thinking that all the time. I didn't really say it to him, because sometimes it's just not your place to say something. Because it was about him and his family. And certain things happened to him, and financial things, which were not good. And I thought, wow, what is the problem? So I confronted him, and I had to, because it was driving me mad, because he kept repeating himself. And I said, look, I'm not going to talk to you if you keep telling me the same thing again and again. Sorry, buddy, but, why don't you just do something about it? I've got a big mouth, as everybody knows. And for years, one of the things a problem with communication was I was too forthright. I was too open. I didn't listen enough. And I was always jumping in when I should have been listening. So I listened to him for a long time, and I thought, wow, there's a serious problem behind this. And I tried to figure it out. And then one day I said, look, why don't you just say something? You've told me all this stuff again and again. Why not say something? And he said, I'm paralyzed by fear. You're paralyzed by fear? What? And the guy's a contractor. He goes out in all weathers, works in all stuff. He's a good guy, and he's a solid, reliable chap, And I thought, you're paralyzed by fear. Fear of what? And it turned out he was paralyzed by fear of his family because of the way he'd been treated for 25 years. And it wasn't that he was, beaten or anything. It was a failure of communication. But basically, he had a real problem in communicating with his family. And I thought, wow. And I said, well, there's, I said, why not do this? Why not say this? Why not say that? And he said, no, I can't. I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of fear. So reminded me about my fear on the scaffold and being paralyzed, and then overcoming it with communication. So I said, well, why don't you just change your approach? If you don't want to talk to them, just change your approach. He said, well, how do I do that? I said, send him an email. I said, don't text it. Texting is not long enough. You need an email that lists all the things, all the problems, and the way you feel about these things, and how long it's gone on, and all this sort of stuff. And list it, bump, and put the explanations in. Don't put emotion into it. Email's an emotionless thing, like texting. Right, there's no emotion in an email. So you can use it as a de facto list. You can just list things and say, I don't feel very happy at the moment. I'm in a position where I can't move forward. And that was the real thing that tipped him over the edge, was he couldn't move forward with his business. And it was frustrating because people could help him and they chose not to. So, and this was his family. And it was sort of being treated like a little boy. And that's what really confused me at first. I thought, well, wow, you're acting like a 10-year-old here, dude. What's the problem? So being paralyzed by fear of communication. with his own family. And I know a lot of people have this. I mean, there's an old saying I use all the time: you can choose your friends, you can't choose your relatives. And we've all got those people in the family that we don't really talk to. Anyway, I know, didn't you know this is called black sheep? And that was me, by the way, pointing at myself. So, I know all about families, and we got a big family. And I always thought, wow. So I said, write it down as an email. And he said, well, and he's always talking about doing this and doing that, but it then turns out he hasn't got much experience on a computer. He doesn't really do much of that stuff. And I said, oh, okay. So I said, I'll do it for you if you like. Because I'd heard the story so many times. It's a bit of a marble job, and I've talked about marbles before, and I don't want to listen to marbles. So I said, let me write it for you, and you can, you can edit it and do whatever you like. But I'm going to write it in a way that it's not offensive, it's not pushy, it just lists the facts and the way you feel about the facts and how long this has been going on. And so it's a way of being emotionless, yet telling somebody how you feel. And, and you can say you're upset. You can say you feel, how you feel. You feel not abandoned, but, there's a level of assumption that you're going to do things because you just always have. And so there was a conversation between me and him, and then I wrote something for him. And I said, well, have you read it? And he said, yeah, I read it 4 or 5 times. And then I just went, oh, whatever. And I pressed send. And I said, you went, whatever? What do you mean, whatever? Well, I'll just send it, see what happens. Because he was still frightened of upsetting people, even though he was sending an email. He didn't have to talk to anybody. And so I encouraged him to do that. And then that definitely woke them up. And but they then refused to communicate. It was sort of sporadic. Oh, I'll talk about that tomorrow. Oh, I'm going to do this today. No, I haven't got time today, and I don't want to talk about that. And then it took about a week for them to actually get together and sit down face to face. And I said, one of the things you cannot do is talk. You have to listen. Don't talk. Don't say anything, and do not capitulate, because that's been his problem. Because he's fearful, he's been capitulating to everything they've said. So I said, you can't do that anymore. I said, you either have to get past the fear, or you have to just put up with your life the way it is. I mean, if you don't change, you've reached the stage when, you have to change. So change your approach. So we sent the email. There was a discussion after that, and he gained 2 small victories. Yay! Right, and one of them was they're both sort of financial, which puts him in a better position. But they were very small victories. That was very easy for the family to say, oh, yeah, okay, then. But he did point out a lot of other things at the same time, which are going to take longer to sink in. I said, there's no way all this is going to happen at once. I said, if it does, it'll be a miracle. Because after 25 years of this, it's going to take a while for people to change their attitudes. And I think financial decisions have to be made and about how they're going to proceed. And if they don't want you to do something, well, that's going to show through too. But I think they do, because they know it's a family-run company, and he's ingrained in it. So he already does all the work and everything else. It's just the level of financial compensation, but also this level of fear of upsetting somebody. Oh, I can't do that today. So, I'll stop my other work and I'll come and do your work first, which is insane. I mean, you're a contractor. Well, you do work when you can. We all know you start 10 jobs at once, don't we? Yes, all contractors. So, and there's a great quote by George Bernard Shaw that says, the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And that was where he was. He talks to these people all the time, but there's no communication. There's just capitulation on one side and expectation on the other. And so I said, well, you're never going to get anywhere. So he got 2 little victories, which were financial ones, and that certainly helped him. And I tried to say to him, he sounded quite down when I spoke to him about it after this meeting, and he said, well, yeah, it is what it is. And I said, what do you mean? I said, now you don't get to pay, you don't have to pay this anymore. And also you're going to get compensated properly for your work. I said, those are two big victories, mate. I said, compared to what you've had in the last 25 years, and this can happen anywhere, can't it, at work? If you're at work in an office, how do you get past that? Well, it could be that you switch it around. You're already sending emails and texts. Perhaps you should go meet somebody by the water cooler or the photocopier. Or simply go and introduce yourself in their office and say, look, we work together, but I've never really met you. And I just wanted to introduce myself and say that I work in this and I want to do this and want to do that. And just sit down and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or whatever it is. But you're used to sending emails. Go actually talk to the person. It's like Mary in accounting. Nobody ever goes to see Mary in accounting unless they've got a problem. And they say, Mary, I haven't got my check. Mary, my expenses are late. Well, they never communicated with Mary. They don't even know where Mary works. She's in another part of the building. I'm not going down there. What do I want to do that for? You need to go down there to explain to Mary who you are and actually find out from Mary what you need to do better in order to get paid on time. That's what I used to do. So so it's a small victory. So I said, you should celebrate this victory. It's a small victory, and every small victory leads to greater success. So even though you haven't got all the things you want, who cares? Move on, right? You've got something, and that's a victory. Let's go. So that was what I wanted to say today. He proves himself every day, and he's proved himself for 25 years. Okay, but he hasn't had many victories. And I'm not saying it's all his fault. It's not. It's all the family's fault, because it's not. It's his as well. His fear and paralysis in communication, but also he hasn't stood up for himself. And when he's got the experience and the skills to stand up in front of anybody, but he just wouldn't do it because he was literally frightened of upsetting somebody, which is amazing. So, but I'm glad I got to help him. And I hope he sees it as victories. He does, but in a very sort of down way at the moment. And I hope he sees it as a victory in the future, because it is a victory. So the victory was in communication, but he had to change tack. You have to change your stance. You have to change the way you approach something. And that's very, very important. You need to be able to compromise. You need to find a balance between what you want and what they want. Okay, your experience means that they know who you are and what you're capable of, your skill set. And if they don't, you should inform them politely. Go and have a communication. Go and start communication. And time and money, yes. Well, he's gonna make more money, and he's now got more time because he doesn't have to be roped to the side of this thing anymore. He will do it more professionally and make his time management better. I hope he will anyway. I mean, I'm trying to help him with all sorts of things. And he's my friend. It's not a client. Nobody pays me for this stuff. He's a friend of mine. But I was quite amazed that he was paralyzed by that much fear. Just like, I mean, he likened it to, he listens to my podcast, and he likened it to when I was on the scaffolding. And I thought, wow, for 25 years. Ooh, that's a serious problem. And but it's just what we grow up with, and sometimes we don't want to do things, and I don't do everything either. There's things I won't do, and because I don't want to learn how to do them, and I don't need to. I'm in my own little bubble, but I'm in a bubble where I'm not in a bubble. I haven't got a box or a bubble. I embrace life, but there are choices I make, compromises and balances. I want to do certain things, and I don't want to do others. So it's just the way it is. But then I found a great quote, which I'm going to end the podcast with. And this was something that I read this and I thought, wow, this is perfect. It says, take advantage of every opportunity to practice your communication skills so that when important occasions arise, you will have the gift, the style, the sharpness, the clarity, and the emotions to affect other people. And I thought that was very, very well put. So this is me, Andy Hancock, on We Don't Do Boring. And that was today's podcast, which is celebrating small victories. So if you've got one small victory, like you've got somebody to buy your vanilla creamer at the coffee stand instead of that other stuff, victory, yes, take it. And remember, all creation begins with destruction. So yeah, and as it always does. And this is Andy Hancock, and I'll see you next time. Bye.